You woke up this morning and checked your phone before your feet touched the floor. You felt something when you saw the notifications, a small hit of relief, or maybe a quiet sting of disappointment. Either way, your chest responded before your conscious mind had even finished waking up. You did not choose that reaction. It arrived fully formed, faster than thought. And it was not a personality quirk. It was not a bad habit you could just decide to drop. It was 50,000-year-old code executing a command that was written before cities existed, before language was written down, before anyone had a concept of a morning routine at all. You are running ancient software on a modern machine, and most of the time, you have absolutely no idea it is on. The human brain has not meaningfully changed in roughly 50,000 years. That is not a metaphor. That is the scientific consensus among evolutionary biologists and cognitive scientists who study what they call behavioral modernity, the moment in human prehistory when our ancestors began planning, creating, and communicating in ways that look recognizably like us today. The brain you are using right now, the one decoding these words, processing this voice, quietly evaluating whether this is worth your time, that brain is essentially identical to the one that was staring at campfire flames on an African savanna tens of thousands of years ago. Same architecture, same operating system, radically different world. Anthropologist Richard Wrangham at Harvard has spent decades tracing the evolutionary pressures that built the human mind. His work points to a deeply uncomfortable truth. Your brain was not designed for the life you are living. It was designed for a life of immediate physical danger, small social groups, scarce resources, and a constant, urgent need to read the people around you for signs of threat or alliance. Every instinct you carry was forged by that world. And then, the world changed faster than evolution could follow. The result is you. Here is the first glitch in the system. Your brain cannot distinguish between social rejection and physical danger. Not emotionally, neurologically. To your nervous system, being excluded from a conversation and being abandoned by your tribe produce the same internal alarm. Neuroscientist Naomi Eisenberger at UCLA demonstrated this in a now famous experiment using a simple digital game called Cyberball. Participants played a virtual game of catch with two other players. After a few rounds, the other players stopped throwing the ball to them. No explanation. No dramatic event, just exclusion. Brain scans showed that this tiny, consequence-free social rejection activated the same neural regions that fire during physical pain. A cartoon game of catch. Real neurological pain response. The reason is evolutionary, and it is ruthless in its logic. Being excluded from a group 50,000 years ago was effectively a death sentence. No shelter, no shared food, no protection from predators, no one to watch your back while you slept. Social rejection and death were so tightly linked for so long that the brain evolved to treat them as functionally identical. That wiring was never removed. It was never patched. It is still running silently in the background of every interaction you have today. So when you feel a disproportionate spike of anxiety because someone left your message on read, you are not being dramatic. You are not overreacting. You are running code that once kept your ancestors alive. The code just does not know that the stakes have changed. Here is the second glitch. You are obsessed with what other people think of you, not occasionally, constantly. Even when you are alone, even when no one is watching, a part of your brain is always running a social evaluation scan. How did they react when I said that? Did their expression shift? Am I still respected? Am I still in? This is not insecurity. It is architecture. Psychologist Mark Leary at Duke University developed a framework called the sociometer hypothesis to explain this. The idea is that self-esteem is not really a fixed measurement of how you feel about yourself in isolation. It is a live readout of how accepted you believe you are by the people around you. Your sense of self-worth is a dynamic meter, constantly adjusting based on signals from your social environment. Your brain evolved to care about this more than almost anything else because in the ancestral world, your rank and reputation were not abstract concerns. They determined your access to food, mates, shelter, and protection. The individuals who were exquisitely sensitive to social signals thrived. The ones who were indifferent, who missed the signs of shifting alliances or rising disapproval in their group, did not survive long enough to pass on that indifference. Their genes are not here. Yours are. The problem is that the sociometer was calibrated for a tribe of roughly 50 to 150 people, which researcher Robin Dunbar has argued is the natural upper limit of close social bonding in humans. Now it is pointing at social media feeds, comment sections, and the imagined judgments of strangers across the world. It has no sense of proportion. It has no off switch. It treats a stranger's dismissal with the same urgency as a tribal elder's rejection. Because to the ancient circuitry, there is no meaningful difference. There is a third glitch, and it may be the strangest. You are fundamentally incapable of emotionally processing large numbers. Not mathematically, emotionally. Your brain can feel a group of 5 people, 10 people, maybe at a stretch 30. Beyond that, the numbers become abstractions. They register as words, not as felt realities. Psychologist Paul Slovic at the University of Oregon has studied this extensively. He calls it psychic numbing. In one set of experiments, people were shown a photograph of a single child in desperate need. Donations were generous. Another group was shown statistics about millions of children in the same situation. Donations fell. The larger the scale of suffering, the smaller the emotional response. This is not moral failure. This is ancient software encountering a problem it was never built to process. Your brain evolved to care intensely about the immediate, the specific, and the local. One child in front of you, one rival threatening your position, one unfamiliar face at the edge of camp. The ancestral world rarely required your empathy system to stretch beyond what you could see and touch. When the numbers grow abstract, the circuitry goes quiet. This is why global crises can produce numbness, why statistics about mass suffering move people less than a single story with a name and a face. You are not broken. You are operating exactly as designed. The design simply never anticipated a world in which you would be asked to feel for billions of people you would never meet. There is a fourth piece of code running in the background, one that may be the most relentless of all. Your brain is wired to notice the negative, not accidentally, by design. Psychologists call this the negativity bias, and the research is consistent across cultures and age groups. Negative events register faster, are remembered more vividly, and have a larger impact on your mood and decisions than positive events of equal size. You can receive 9 compliments and 1 piece of criticism, and the criticism is what you will be replaying at 2 in the morning. This is not self-sabotage. It is a sensible risk management strategy for a world where a single mistake could end your life. In the ancestral environment, the cost of missing a threat was death. The cost of missing an opportunity was merely an opportunity missed. Natural selection relentlessly favored the brains that erred on the side of caution, that treated ambiguous signals as potential danger, that scanned constantly for what might go wrong. Over generations, that tendency compounded until it became the default mode of human cognition. The result is a brain that, left to itself, is a threat detection machine running continuous threat detection even when there are no real threats. The system evolved for a world full of physical danger. In a world where most immediate dangers have been removed, the system turns inward. It scans the future for things that could go wrong. It replays past failures looking for patterns. It inflates small setbacks into signals of larger collapse. You are not a pessimist. You are a survivor whose survival hardware is working exactly as intended in an environment where the job is no longer needed. But here is the thing that changes everything. Not every glitch in the system is working against you. The same software that makes you hypervigilant about social standing also makes you capable of fierce, selfless loyalty. The same neural wiring that causes you to feel neurological pain when excluded also allows you to feel genuine joy at someone else's success. The same tribal instinct that creates suspicion towards strangers also produces extraordinary sacrifice and generosity within the people you love. The code is not evil. It is not even bad. It is ancient. It was written for a world that no longer exists, and it has been running without an update for 50,000 years. Neuroscientist Lisa Feldman Barrett at Northeastern University has spent years studying how the brain actually constructs emotional experience. Her research challenges the old model of emotions as fixed, hardwired signals that simply happen to you. Instead, the brain is constantly making predictions, building emotional experiences from past patterns, bodily sensations, and context. And crucially, those predictions can be retrained. They can be interrupted. The gap between the signal and the response can be widened. When you understand that the anxiety surging through you before a presentation is not a warning of real danger, but a false positive, a fire alarm going off in a building that is not burning, you begin to hear it differently. You do not silence it, you translate it. And translation is where your freedom lives. The brain that evolved to track threats in tall grass is the same brain that wrote symphonies, cured diseases, and mapped the human genome. The ancient code is not your enemy. It is the substrate from which everything remarkable about you has emerged. But you have to know it is running, because most people do not. Most people move through their days believing their reactions are rational, their anxiety is unique to them, their hunger for approval is a personal flaw, their numbness to distant suffering is something morally wrong with their character. It is none of those things. It is old hardware encountering new problems, and the gap between the world this software was built for and the world you are actually living in, that gap is where almost all of modern human suffering lives. You scroll for hours and feel hollow because your reward system was built for scarce, unpredictable resources. Every time the feed loads something new, your dopamine spikes, then fades. Exactly as it would have when your ancestors spotted movement in the grass that might be food. You eat past fullness because your body still operates as though abundance could disappear tomorrow. You catastrophize about a minor failure at work because a loss of social standing 50,000 years ago was not merely embarrassing. It could end your life. Every seemingly irrational thing you do makes perfect sense once you trace it to its source. So, what do you do with this? You start to notice the code executing in real time. You learn to ask, in the moment when the anxiety surges, or the comparison spiral pulls you under, or the doom scroll takes hold, is this a real threat? Or is this the ancient system running a scan that no longer applies to the situation in front of me? You will not always be able to stop the reaction. The system runs too deep, too fast for that. But the act of asking the question creates a gap between the signal and your response. And in that gap, something extraordinary becomes possible. You can choose, not perfectly, not every time, but more often than your ancestors ever could, because your ancestors never had the tools to observe the machinery from the outside. They were completely inside it, with no view of the architecture. You do not have to be. That is not a small thing. That is, in the most literal sense possible, the next step in human evolution. Not biological, cognitive. The first species that becomes aware of its own operating system is the first species that can begin, consciously, to upgrade it. This morning, you woke up and checked your phone before your feet touched the floor. You felt something when you saw the notifications. Now you know exactly what that something was. It was 50,000 years of survival code running a status check, scanning the social environment, determining whether you were still in the group, still valued, still safe, still alive. You are. And for the first time in the entire history of the human species, you are doing something your ancestors never could. You are watching the software run, and you are deciding what to do next.